Welcome back to Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking, the weekly, well, at least for now, the weekly podcast where I talk to you about everything that happened for the last week to make you a little bit smarter about a lot of things. Before we get started, I just want to do a quick bit of housekeeping and thank all of my listeners in the Maldives, apparently, for making me the 14th most popular news podcast on Apple Podcasts. That's crazy, and I don't know how that happened, but here we are. Thank you, and we're going to keep it going. Next stop, number 1 in the Maldives on news subtopic podcasts. And if I'm yelling again, my ears are still plugged from this damn cold. I feel a lot better. I'm draining a ton, but my ears are plugged, so everything is a little bit muted in my head. So I'm sorry if I'm yelling, just turn down the volume, I guess is the only thing I can tell you to do. Without further ado, let's start with the top 10 things that happened this week. Number 10, Haley Welch, aka the Hawk Tuah girl, has gone completely silent online after she launched the Tuah meme coin bullshit that lost all of its value in one day. But now investors in that meme coin are actually suing people associated with the launch for unlawful promotion and sale of the coin. So if not a single thing that I just spoke about rings any bells to you, here are pretty much the spark notes that you need to know. Haley Welch is the girl that had her viral spit on that thing video.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that Hawk Tuah and spit on that thing. You get me?
She got super popular after that, podcast and all, and then attached her name to a cryptocurrency called $Hawk. I don't know how you would pronounce that, but it's like that investor free. I don't know. I don't do cryptocurrency. Do I look like somebody who would do cryptocurrency? Furthermore, a meme coin, because I learned this, is a type of cryptocurrency that is typically launched on the back of a popular internet meme or recurring joke, in this case, the Hawk part of Hawk Tuah, which is what she was known for in that video. Okay, now that you're all caught up on the stupidity, here is what the news is. On December 4th, Welch told Fortune that her meme coin is, quote, not just a cash grab. She said that she had changed her mind about crypto after attending conferences and realized that it was a good, quote, way to interact with my fans. As we could probably see where this was going, its value plunged $440 million in just 20 minutes the day of the launch. People were very clearly then going to sue her because they lost $440 million. I don't know about you, but it looks like she hawked a little Tuah close to the sun. Lawyers for the investors wrote in their December 19th court filing that the lawsuit, quote, arises from the unlawful promotion and sale of the Hawk Tuah cryptocurrency meme coin, which defendants offered and sold to the public without proper registration. Named in the suit are Tuah the Moon Foundation. Oh, they had the same idea. Tuah, get it. Which was used to handle money taken in from the sale of the meme coin, and the coin's creator, Over Here Limited, and its executive, Clinton So, and the meme coin's Los Angeles-based promoter, Alex Larson Schultz. The plaintiff's attorney said in their filing, quote, through aggressive promotional campaigns and promises of future growth, defendants created a speculative frenzy that caused the token's market value to spike shortly after launch, reaching a significant market capitalization. Defendants leveraged Welch's celebrity status and connections to enhance the token's credibility and appeal, including discussing the $Hawk project during Welch's podcast featuring notable guests. The lawyers also said, quote, defendants leveraged the extensive social media following of Haley Welch, a prominent social media personality known as the Hawk Tuah girl, to market the token as a groundbreaking cryptocurrency project. Many of the investors were first-time cryptocurrency participants drawn to the project through Welch's involvement. The rapid decline in the token's value caused substantial damages to investors who relied on Welch's participation and the project's stated roadmap. Understandably, Haley Welch has gone completely silent online. I would too, if I literally am now being sued for the damages of 440 million people. And actually, if this does go to fraud, that's like a federal issue, like jail time type of issue. However, her team released a statement to some folks that were subsequently shared online, including writer Noah Colwin, who writes for the New York Times, The Intercept, Jewish Currents, Defector, New York Magazine, and a lot more. Though he seemed really surprised, tweeting, quote, why was I just emailed a statement from Haley Welch's PR team? He continued by sharing a screenshot of the entire email, the statement, the attribution, the background, everything, stating, quote, FYI, you can't just say something is on background without a journalist agreeing to those terms. So here's what I was sent. As a PR professional myself, he is 100% right. If I have a client that says, hey, let's get that reporter some information on background, which means it's meant to help inform the story, but we don't stand by these statements as like quotable statements, you have to ask the reporter, hey, are you agreeing to this information on background? If yes, I can share it with you. If they say no, don't share it, because it's the same thing as somebody saying, well, you never said it was off the record. And it's like, you have to say it's off the record if you don't want the reporter that you're speaking to actually quoting you on that information. Anyway, here's what he posted said. Good morning. Reaching out on behalf of Haley Welch in regard to today's class action lawsuit filed by Berwick Law against the creators of the meme coin $Hawk. We would like to provide the below statement on behalf of Haley, attributed to Haley Welch. Quote, I take this situation extremely seriously and want to address my fans, the investors who have been affected, and the broader community. I am fully cooperating with and am committed to assisting the legal team representing the individuals impacted, as well as to help uncover the truth, hold the responsible parties accountable, and resolve this matter. If you have experienced losses related to this, please contact Berwick Law using the link below. So the rest of what they're providing in this email is what is supposed to be on background, but because they never asked, they just gave it and said it was for background. It was published. Anyway, here's everything that was supposed to be on background, but now is in the foreground for you. Haley Welch did not spearhead or create this project. She simply received a sponsorship fee for lending her persona to those that created and deployed the meme coin $Hawk. Outside of the initial fixed fee received before the launch, there was no guarantee that she would make any additional money from the meme coin thereafter. 2. Due to her limited role, Haley was completely siloed from this project and had zero control over it. This was due to receiving incorrect advice from the company responsible for launching the coin and wanted to take advantage of her viral success. 3. Haley understands how her unexpected start in the industry comes across, but since achieving virality, she's proven that she has the star power to lead a successful career. Her podcast, Hawk Tuah, landed at number 5 on Spotify in only several months after being live, and she plans to keep pushing forward after clearing up the narrative around her involvement in the project. 4. Haley is working alongside Berwick Law to help uncover the truth, hold the responsible parties accountable, and resolve that matter. Personally, I don't understand why any of the information that was on background would have been on background when it should just be included in your statement. That was all really helpful information in clearing her name. Weird that you only want it to inform the context as opposed to just providing everything up front, saying here are the points that we want to make, and then here is the statement. I don't know. It seems like somebody who is involved with her PR team is fairly green, but either way, all I'm hearing is that now I have a goal for the new year, and it's to become more popular than the Hawk Tuah podcast on Spotify. Are you guys willing to help me do that? That's, number 5. Let's bump it up to number 4 for the Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking podcast. I will be more popular than the Hawk Tuah girl if it is literally the last thing I do. Number 9, the CDC confirmed the first case of bird flu in the US in a hospitalized patient in Louisiana. Yes, you heard that right. We are yet again entering a timeline where diseases must be spoken about on a national level because somebody was hospitalized. Now, if you're of a certain age, you'll probably remember back in the 90s and the 2000s. I would say I was pretty young during that era, but I vividly remember bird flu and swine flu. So it's like if I was going to a restaurant with my parents and bird flu was out there, you just don't eat chicken. If swine flu was out there, you don't eat pork. You find a different food. So before I even looked into this, I was like, okay, listen, I know we go through bird flu every once in a while from contaminated animals, but it's really interesting that the CDC is now releasing information publicly about this person being hospitalized. Should it be something bigger than what we knew about in the 90s and 2000s? Obviously, this was all pre-COVID, but now the CDC confirmed on Wednesday that the United States' first, quote, severe human case of H5N1 avian influenza, or bird flu, which has stoked fears of becoming the next global pandemic. That is why they were talking about it, because they're freaked out about somebody involved with animals having a severe case of this flu. So the severe case involves a resident of southwestern Louisiana who was reported as presumptively positive for the infection last Friday. The infected patient is, quote, experiencing severe respiratory illness related to the flu and is currently hospitalized in critical condition, according to a spokesperson from the Louisiana Department of Health. She said the patient is over the age of 65 and has underlying medical conditions. They didn't give any more information because that's a HIPAA violation. If you don't know what HIPAA is, go look it up. I'm not going to run down that because there are so many weird folks on this internet that is going to yell at me about HIPAA violations. The CDC, in its December 18th announcement, said that while an investigation is underway, the patient was found to have links to sick and dead birds in backyard flocks, making it the first known case of infection in the U.S. to have those origins. Of the other 60 cases, there were 61 cases already. Of the other 60 cases, 58 were linked to commercial agriculture agriculture, 37 from dairy herds, and 21 from poultry farms and culling. The sources of exposure of the other 2 remain unknown. So there are 61 cases. Most of them seem to be farming. Okay, let's just keep going. Of the human infections recorded in the US this year, 34 or more than half were in California, with all but one of those exposed to cattle. In response, Governor Gavin Newsom on December 18th actually declared a state of emergency. This Louisiana case is the 61st case of human H5N1 bird flu infection in the country since April this year, but the CDC has said the overall risk of the pathogen to the public remains low, and no related deaths have been reported in the US so far. So all of that just seems to be a bunch of scary words for what, right? If the risk of infection is low and deaths have not occurred, why are we talking about global pandemics again? Like, we already have PTSD. Are we all just locked in our own little mind prisons over the fact that any sort of illness that people get, that they used to get all the time, like COVID was brand new. Bird flu has been happening, like I said, since like the 90s and 2000s. Like, people know what this is. Anyway, so here is how to protect yourself if you're, a planner like I am. The CDC issued a number of protective measures, including largely avoiding direct contact with wild birds and other suspected infected animals, as well as their bodily excretions. Check. I don't touch birds often. People who work with cattle and poultry on affected farms have a greater risk of infection and are thus advised to monitor any possible symptoms of infection. The CDC also recommends that those who work with poultry or other animals use the correct PPE, including coveralls, boots, and more, which should be provided by the employer. Once again, I don't work in that industry. Check. What are the risks of me touching a contaminated bird? I don't have birds for pets. Just, ugh. A virologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University says that the severe case in Louisiana provides a reminder of an easy way to stay safe. Stay away from dead animals. Quote, you see a dead animal, if you're exposed to dead animals, stay away. In many ways, it is the least likely way someone can get exposed, but in some ways, it's also one of the more preventable ways. Stop touching dead shit. I feel like, properly cooked poultry is safe to eat. Like, this is all just, you guys, I feel like this is 101. Am I crazy? This is just something that was really common sense before. I think 2020 really broke a lot of people's brains. In all honesty, I think this was all common sense before. Don't touch dead animals. If there's an infected animal, don't touch it, or use gloves and, protective measures. I don't understand the freak out here. Stop being idiots, I think is kind of the moral of the story. Anyway, these public health officials say that it's also important to get the seasonal human influenza vaccine. They say if there were to be a case of a person with simultaneous bird flu and human flu, it could lead to a reassortment and thus a virus that could be more easily spread. So just, once again, get your flu vaccines. I need to get mine. I need to schedule mine. I'm coming off this cold, and that's why I haven't gotten it yet, but I do need to get it. They go on to say, quote, we know the flu vaccines are not perfect, but they do a good job of reducing infection, period. Speaking of Louisiana, number 8, NPR is reporting that the state of Louisiana is actually forbidding public health workers from promoting COVID, flu, and monkeypox vaccines. Yes, this is the bad place. According to NPR, a group of high-level managers at the Louisiana Department of Health walked in on a November 14th meeting in Baton Rouge expecting to talk about outreach and community events. Instead, they were told by an assistant secretary in the department and another official that department leadership had a new policy. Advertising or otherwise promoting the COVID, influenza, or Mpox vaccines, an established practice there, and at most other public health entities in the U.S., must stop. According to the employees who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they feared losing their job and other types of retaliation, the policy would be implemented quietly and would not be put in writing. Staffers were also told that it applies to every aspect of the health department's work. Employees could not send out press releases, they could not give interviews, they could not hold vaccine events, they could not give presentations or create social media posts encouraging the public to get vaccines. They also could not put up signs at the department's clinics that COVID, flu, or Mpox vaccines were available on site. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the stupidest thing. I've heard a lot of stupid things. This is the stupidest thing that I have heard. The new policy in Louisiana was implemented as some politicians have promoted false information about vaccines, and as President-elect Donald Trump seeks to have anti-vax activist RFK Jr. lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Of fucking course he's involved here. Of fucking course, you are no longer allowed to tell people vaccines are available or promote them in any way because RFK Jr. is a conspiracy theorist. And some public health experts are also concerned that if other states follow Louisiana, the U.S. could face rising levels of disease and further erosion of trust in the nation's public health infrastructure. Of fucking course it will erode the public state. You guys, I can't even form a sentence. This is so maddening. Of course, it's going to erode trust in the public health infrastructure if you have people telling you not to get vaccinated, if you can't promote it, if somebody asks you, is this available on site? I guess you could probably say yes, but they can't proactively come in and just look around. They have to speak to somebody. What type of moron thinks that this is a way to protect lives in the US, let alone in Louisiana, where the health quality is one of the lowest in the country? The South, writ large, has horrible health infrastructure. And of course, this is going to be ground zero for it. Governor Jeff Landry's office referred questions to the Louisiana Department of Health and did not respond when asked if Landry supports the changes. In a statement, the Louisiana Department of Health told NPR it has been, quote, reevaluating both the state's public health priorities as well as our messaging around vaccine promotion, especially for COVID-19 and influenza. The statement described the move as a shift, quote, away from a one-size-fits-all paternalistic guidance to a stance in which, quote, immunization for any vaccine, along with practices like mask wearing and social distancing, are an individual's personal choice. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking done talking about this story. I can't even read the rest of this. I'm done with this story. I have never been more livid in my entire life. This is the most fucking irresponsible shit I have ever heard of. You should be disgusted in yourselves. If you're a listener in Louisiana or you know somebody who lives in Louisiana, please know that you can and should continue to get vaccinated. These are proven to be beneficial to populations of all shapes and sizes. It's proven to help people who have autoimmune disease who can't get vaccinated if the general public has vaccinations in their bodies already. The government won't fucking tell you to get your shots. I will. Get vaccinated. End of. Get vaccinated. Okay, I had to take a second, sorry. Number 7, Wicked Part 2. On a very different note, Wicked Part 2 will be released November 21st, 2025, and is called Wicked for Good. Yes, you heard that right. As of today, we are officially 365 days away from being able to see the greatest movie of 2025, which is going to be Wicked Part 2. Here is a literal 7-second trailer that they released in case you want to see it in person. There are no words. So if you're just listening to this on the podcast side of things, enjoy some nice background music. So in case you haven't seen the musical, there's a song called For Good, and this isn't going to be a spoiler, but that's just the title of it. So that obviously makes sense. I think it was like the second to last song in the musical or the last song in the musical, which makes sense that it would be the title of the second movie. Now, we don't know much about what Wicked for Good has in it. We already know that it's been filmed, which is good. It's being cut as we speak. But here's what we do know from Deadline. Is Wicked Part 2 in production? The second film has wrapped production. Director John M. Chu told Deadline that he cut both films side by side ahead of the release of Wicked Part 1. Quote, I cut both of them at the same time last year, so I could watch both of them back to back and wait till that happens. It's a doozy to see both, he said. I put it to bed. I needed to know that every scene in 1 had an intention for 2, and we put that to bed, and I just opened it up last week. We're tweaking and doing all of the things. Cool. What songs will be in Wicked Part 2? Thank Goodness, sung by Glinda, Madame Morrible, and the Citizens of Oz. The Wicked Witch of the East, sung by Elphaba, Nessa Rose, and Bach. The Wonderful, or just called Wonderful, I guess, by The Wizard and Elphaba. I'm Not That Girl, reprised by Glinda. Oh. As Long as You're Mine by Elphaba and Fierro. No Good Deed by Elphaba. March of the Witch Hunters by Bach and the Ozians. For Good by Glinda and Elphaba. And Finale Song. It doesn't tell me anything other than that. Here's my one singular request. I need theaters across the country to do a Part 1 and Part 2 screening. Bring Part 1 back into theater so that I can sit there for 6 hours straight, watch Part 1, and then go directly into Part 2 when I see it for the first time. I will sit there. I'll bring a full, bucket to pee in. I won't get up. I'll sit there and watch for 6 hours straight. I'm begging you to please do this. People across the country will literally be giving you money hand over fist. Number 6, 120 House Democrats have called on Joe Biden to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. So earlier this week, 120 members of the House authored a letter urging President Joe Biden to take action to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, protecting rights for all, regardless of sex, before he leaves office early next year. The letter read in part, quote, as we approach the conclusion of your historic administration, we urge you to take the immediate action to recognize the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, as the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We must continue our efforts to fully affirm and recognize the equality of rights for all people, regardless of sex, as part of our Constitution, a vital effort that has never been more urgent. This letter follows a very similar one that was sent to Biden in November, signed by 46 Democratic senators. So for a little history, the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, was first drafted in 1923. 3, stating that, quote, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Basically, it's saying that women are equal to men. That's not a controversial, just listen, but it shouldn't be controversial. It also grants Congress the power to enforce this amendment. So if there is somebody who's discriminating based on sex, Congress can enforce that amendment and say, no, you can't fucking do that. And with the approaching Donald Trump administration and his impending assault on various rights, the members of Congress wrote that ratifying the ERA is, quote, essential as we prepare to transition to an administration that has been openly hostile to reproductive freedom, access to healthcare, and LGBTQIA plus rights. Even Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton, former Senator Hillary Clinton, former First Lady Hillary Clinton. She's been everywhere. That woman has been in government, is pushing behind the scenes to move the ERA forward by speaking with the archivist about the amendment on behalf of Kirsten Gillibrand, who is the Kirsten Gillibrand, who is the Democratic senator from New York. So constitutional amendments require 2/3 of the states, which is 38 states, to ratify the amendment in order for the amendment to take effect nationally. Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA in 2020. So it was almost 100 years to get 38 states to ratify this amendment, which is disgusting beyond belief. Congress approved the ERA originally in 1972, and a year later, 30 states had ratified it, still 8 short. But a Stop ERA campaign led by conservative activist Phyllis Schlafly halted its progress. If you haven't seen the show Mrs. America, it's on Hulu. I watched this years ago. It is all about the Equal Rights Amendment, and Phyllis Schlafly, who's played by Cate Blanchett, is basically, it's her journey into becoming this right-wing figure, a conservative figure who was pushing against the Equal Rights Amendment because she thought that it was actually damaging to women, whereas Republican and Democratic and independent women alike were all supporting the ERA because it was a women's issue, not a party issue. Go watch it. It's got Cate Blanchett, Rose Byrne, Sarah Paulson, Uzo Aduba, Margot Martindale, more. You need to go see it. If you have nothing to do over the next 2 weeks for the holiday, just binge watch Mrs. America, because that's at least really poignant right now in the US. So it is going to be worth your time. You'll understand what's going on. Just do it, trust me. Because of a 1982 ratification deadline set by Congress, it has lapsed. Since then, 5 states, Idaho, Kentucky, Nebraska, Tennessee, and South Dakota, have actually rescinded their prior approval. Although there's precedent to say you can actually rescind it once you've approved it. Its path forward is still in question. Though the ERA is popular with Americans, with 78% stating in a survey conducted earlier this month that they believe the ERA should be part of the Constitution. 78% of America can't agree that it's a fucking Tuesday, but they agree that the ERA should be part of the Constitution, and yet you've had 5 states rescind their passage of it. It's all just get it signed. So unfortunately, because it's the US, so everything has to start with unfortunately, in a rare joint statement, the archivist and deputy archivist of the United States, who are the people who are in charge of actually verifying, validating, making sure things get into the Constitution at all, said on Tuesday that the 1970s era Equal Rights Amendment cannot be certified without further action by Congress or the courts. The archivist, Colleen Shogan, and her deputy, William J. Basanko, who are responsible for certifying and publishing new amendments once they meet the required ratification threshold, said that neither they nor Biden can act without Congress or the courts lifting the deadline. Quote, in 2020 and again in 2022, the Office of Legal Counsel of the U.S. Department of Justice affirmed that the ratification deadline established by Congress for the ERA is valid and enforceable, they said in a joint statement. The OLC concluded that extending or removing the deadline requires a new action by Congress or the courts. Court decisions at both the district level and the circuit level have affirmed that the ratification deadlines established by Congress for the ERA are valid. We need to get this done before Trump takes office, because you know that a Republican-controlled House and Senate will not be passing this. So at least for 4 more years, nothing's going to get through and signed by Donald Trump. Call your senators and Congress people. There's zero reason why this shouldn't be passed after 50 fucking years of it actually having passed the first time. 100 years after it being introduced. Call your senators. They work for us. Call your congresspeople. They work for us. It's our tax dollars that pay their salaries. So do what needs to be done. Number 5, speaking of Republicans not being able to do anything, Republican control of the House is in question as Indiana Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz announced that she's not caucusing with Republicans in the new year. That makes the makeup of Congress officially 216 to 215. So you do need, just as a reminder, 218 votes to pass anything in the House. Okay. Republicans won 220 seats in November November, and Democrats won 215. So Republicans can lose no more than 3 votes, which is very hard to do with a Congress full of loons and conspiracy theorists and far-right Congress people who just want to see the country burn down and everything returned to the states. I mean, in fact, they just tried to shut the literal government down yesterday. So I find it hard to believe that they won't lose at least more than 3 people on every single thing they try to do over the next 2 years. So once the Congress people that Trump wants in his cabinet, which I've talked about in a previous episode, I did a full deep dive on who Trump wants in his cabinet. You can go back and listen to that. It is, from what I have been told, informative. Once Trump's Congress people vacate their seats in Congress and move into his cabinet, because there's no reason they shouldn't be confirmed, the new balance of power, with Victoria Spartz not caucusing with any Republicans, will be 216 to 215 for the first few months until they can get the special elections to fill the rest of those seats, meaning that anything that needs to be passed has to be done with at least 2 Democratic votes. And if the Democratic Party holds tight, all I gotta say is good luck, Chuck. So here's Congresswoman Victoria Spartz's statement about her decision. Quote, "I will stay as a registered Republican, but will not sit on committees or participate in the caucus until I see that Republican leadership in Congress is governing. I do not need to be involved in circuses. I would rather spend more of my time helping Doge," which is that Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy bullshit, "and Representative Thomas Massey to save our republic," with an American flag emoji, "as was mandated by the American people." Once again, there is no mandate. You won by like a combined 27,000 votes, some shit like that. So like she said, she will not caucus with the Republicans unless leadership in Congress is governing. Obviously, it's going to be Republican leadership, not Democratic leadership. So you might be asking yourself, where does she stand on voting for Mike Johnson to be Speaker again? Let's just take a listen to this.
Are you going to support Speaker Mike Johnson's bid for Speaker when that comes up for a vote at the beginning of the new Congress?
I haven't decided yet. I'll be honest with you. Mike is a very nice human being. He's a brilliant person. Does it have a strength to reform this institution that is broken? I am not sure, and I haven't seen that. I haven't seen reforms, structural reforms, that he would do to change this institution. Because honestly, all of these committees and messaging, you know it very well. It's just for showmanship. It's just, to actually, raise some money or get on the X you post. It's not really meaningful. You've seen what's happened in recent CR, and the committee chair of Ways and Means was not part of it. Even committee chairs don't matter. It's done at 4 corner deals, and then everyone is getting jam or bought. And this is not the way to govern. That's not what the American people elected us to do, and we had to get attention to this issue.
Now, Victoria Spartz is not alone in ditching Speaker Mike Johnson. Some Republicans are officially calling on Elon Musk to become Speaker of the House because the U.S. is already a little bit of a joke. Why not make it even funnier? Speaking of as a joke, it started as a joke from left-leaning folks on Twitter saying that President Musk could very easily become Speaker Musk because he's running everything anyway as the world's wealthiest man who literally bought this election for Donald Trump, but quickly picked up steam when Senator Rand Paul, a Republican senator from Kentucky, tweeted, quote, "The Speaker of the House need not be a member of Congress. Nothing would disrupt the swamp more than electing Elon Musk. Think about it. Nothing's impossible. Not to mention the joy at seeing the collective establishment, aka Uniparty, lose their ever-loving minds." Well, not to be outdone by that, Republican Congresswoman from Georgia and literal conspiracy theorist nutjob Marjorie Taylor Greene voiced her support for this as well, tweeting, quote, "I'd be open to supporting Elon Musk for Speaker of the House. Doge," once again that Elon and Vivek bullshit, "can only truly be accomplished by reigning in Congress to enact real government efficiency. The establishment needs to be shattered just like it was yesterday. This could be the way." And the final nail in the coffin is the Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Bear in mind, Republican senators do not vote for the Republican Speaker of the House. They're just out there yapping because they need their voices to be heard. So Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah even joined Fox News to float the idea. Take a listen.
Well, I don't think Johnson likes you now. Next time you guys see each other walking through the halls of Congress, he's going to probably kick you in the leg.
He is a good man. He's a friend. He's been a long friend for a long time. Great person. He's lost control of this process.
Okay.
And I don't know how he can remain in power.
All right.
We need Elon or Vivek as Speaker.
He's a friend, and you just threw him overboard. Man,
yes,
politics is tough, Senator Lee.
Well, it is, especially when you try to jam an entire country with the 1,500-page bill that nobody's read, and you try to trick them and bully them into doing it. Some of us take that personally, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I don't like it either. I think it's terrible. And we got to stop doing it, and it's got to stop now.
So if enough people don't like the idea that Elon Musk should become speaker, other names have been floated, including Congressman Tom Emmer of Minnesota. I believe he's the whip of the party, which means that he's in charge of going to people and making sure that they're voting the way that he wants them to vote. Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio and Congressman Byron Donalds for Florida. So we'll see what happens. But the only thing that I'm sure is that Mike Johnson is likely gone come January, especially because Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has already said that Democrats will not be helping save Mike Johnson. So toodaloo. Number 4, Grace O'Malley, former co-host of the Barstool sports podcast Plan Brie Uncut and former best friend of former co-host Brianna Chicken Fry in quotes, LaPaglia, left Barstool Sports this week effective immediately. According to People, the 22-year-old comedian shared on her Instagram story that she's officially parting ways with Barstool Sports, uploading a photo of herself alongside an explanation that announced the news of her departure. Quote, I wanted you guys to hear it from me first that this is my last day at Barstool. I'm so grateful to everyone at the company and to Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy for taking a chance on me. I'm just as surprised as you are. There are no typos in this statement. So here's all the drama for you. The last episode of Plan Brie Uncut, which featured comedic episodes about how to navigate life in your 20s through shared experiences, was released on October 20th. In the months that followed, rumors started to swirl online about the co-hosts and their friendship status. News of O'Malley's departure from Barstool came less than a week after LaPaglia shared her side of a story regarding their friendship amid rumors of a rift between the pair. She opened up on the BFFs podcast, which she co-hosts with Josh Richards and Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports, on December 11th. Quote, I'm always gonna have love for Grace and will always cherish everything that we did with Plan Brie. I've just kind of let everyone make their own opinions. LaPaglia said the breakdown of their friendship with O'Malley began as she dated Zach Bryan. Brianna Chicken Fry dated Zach Bryan, that horrible country singer, who she split from in October of this year, claiming that O'Malley, quote, never defended me despite knowing about the alleged emotional abuse that she dealt with from Zach Bryan. Quote, she knew everything behind the scenes. When the internet started attacking me, they only lifted Grace up when they were beating me down. And it was like, whatever, because it helped her career and she was fine about it. But it got to a point where she was never defending me. I've said this last week. I'm going to say it again. I hate when the quotes that are given by folks in this type of publication include the likes and the ums and the buts. Like, yes, that's literally word for word what they said, but can you make it a little more readable for people like me? When her breakup with Brian was announced in October, she also decided to end Plan Brie Uncut on October 15th. Quote, we're sitting there pretending to be friends and I didn't feel seen by her, so I set a boundary. I gave her everything and I would do it all over again. In early December, LaPaglia teased a new version of Plan Brie Uncut without Grace O'Malley on her Instagram story when Spotify Wrapped was released. O'Malley then uploaded a statement on her Instagram stories on December 6th, confirming the end of her time on the podcast. O'Malley claimed that it was her first time hearing about it. Quote, I'm proud of what we built, nostalgic for all the years, and frankly outright heartbroken that this chapter has closed, but we agreed to make a joint statement, so I replied, cried, and chose not to repost or say anything until it was time. O'Malley then deemed her time on the podcast the, quote, favorite part of this chapter of her life, noting that she was eternally grateful to get to, quote, work with my best friend. She also made clear that she planned to stay with Barstool and would be back, quote, chit-chatting on a weekly basis. I don't know what she planned on that looking like, but that clearly didn't happen because remember how I said that she posted she was leaving Barstool Sports effective immediately? Well, who else would swoop in other than the Barstool alum herself? Call her daddy host and Unwell network founder Alex Cooper. Alex confirmed that Grace is joining Unwell on Thursday. She posted an Instagram carousel to celebrate the news, captioned, at Grace K. O'Malley is unfucking well. Welcome home. Heart emoji, clapping emoji, winking emoji, accompanying videos of the 22-year-old Grace O'Malley, including one of her shouting, quote, I'm unwell, before toasting with a cheering group. For the literal most brief background on Alex Cooper, if you guys haven't heard of her, she started Call Her Daddy, that podcast that she's on now, under Dave Portnoy in 2018 on Barstool Sports. In 2021, she signed a $60 million deal with Spotify to take it over there. And then now, next year, 2025, she's moving that show to Sirius XM, which I hate personally, that decision, but it was rumored for over $100 million, so get your bag, girl. She launched her Unwell network in 2023 with her now husband, Matt Kaplan, Madeline. They previously signed influencers like Alex Earl, Madeline Argy, and Owen Thiel. And while we haven't seen anything about what a Grace O'Malley podcast might look like, maybe she becomes a co-host on one of these. I don't know how popular these are with people outside of the Alex Cooper network. If you add in a Grace O'Malley as a co-host, maybe these become a little bigger name-wise, much like a Plan Brie was, because Grace is younger than all of them by 2 to 6 years. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure there's something coming out. Are you ready for your apparent, Luigi Mangione updates? Because apparently it's a weekly basis now. So number 3, Luigi Mangione updates generally. So first, we found out on Monday that his lawyer is actually married to Diddy's lawyer, and that's all I have to say on that piece because I just thought it was interesting that they're married. On Tuesday, we learned that the New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg charged Luigi with first-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree murder, one of which describes the killing as, quote, terrorism, and other offenses for the murder of the United Healthcare CEO in New York City. Alvin Bragg said in a statement, quote, "The intent was to sow terror, calling the shooting a frightening, well-planned, and targeted murder." And yes, this is the same Alvin Bragg that charged and convicted Donald Trump on 34 counts in the hush money case in New York earlier this year. So he's just everywhere in these high profile cases right now. If you were as curious as I was about the terrorism charge, we're going back for a second because I'm like, that sounds really odd that yes, it was planned out. I guess you could call that domestic terrorism. Here's what the indictment alleged. Quote, Luigi Mangione intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. And I don't condone murder. I'm going to say that very clearly right here. But as somebody who has eyes and a brain that can comprehend words, I don't necessarily understand how the, quote, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion stand in front of a jury when the CEO is the head of a private for-profit company. It's not a unit of government, which is the terrorism charge. There's no government argument here. The government was not involved. Luigi was a private actor. The CEO was a CEO of a private for-profit company. It doesn't really seem like the whole I'm going to make an example of this to scare everyone away is really going to stand with the jury. And if we're asking, I don't think that this is going to stick. I think he's going to be free at some point once the jury hears, because there's not really a lot of evidence. There's evidence. There's not really enough evidence without a doubt to convict him. We'll see. We'll see. So anyway, moving forward to Thursday, Luigi arrived in New York before his federal court appearance because he was, indicted on all of this stuff. Just take a look at him walking in.
Count of federal murder through use of a firearm, a firearms offense as well for using a silencer and muffler in the alleged murder, as well as 2 stalking charges as well. His newly retained attorney, Kara Swisher, suggested that federal charges in this case would be overkill. I just want to note, you see New York City Mayor Eric Adams not far behind Mangione there. Again, a very large law enforcement presence. This was an incident that sparked worldwide attention as Mangione was able to get away soon after the murder, clearly in what was a calculated move, as well as investigators finding key details in the search for him. That book bag in Central Park full of Monopoly money, one interesting detail.
So as if the media has learned absolutely nothing from making Trump look really cool and reasonable and relatable, helping him get elected ultimately, they're doing the exact same fucking thing here with Luigi, where all the police, the mayor, the helicopters, the water in the background, it actually just looks like this man is the most dangerous man in the game, right? He's out there. He's the one shooting up everybody. He allegedly shot one person, right? The fact that he is being walked with, 15 different people, including the mayor of New York City. The mayor of the literal biggest city in the US is walking behind him. This makes him look cool. I'm sorry, I have to say it. It makes him look really, really cool. People are going to be interested in this. You are giving this man a bigger platform than he already had, especially since he just got a fresh fade and his eyebrows were taken care of in prison. And actually there was some lady on TikTok that was saying that the fresh cut and the fade and the eyebrows and everything was actually a sign to all of the guards to say don't fuck with Luigi. We've got him. The people who are in prison already, we've got him. He's our protectee now. So don't fuck with him. That's why we gave him all of this really good hair and eyebrows to make him known that he's a part of us. Don't fuck with him. And I'm all right, well, that's crazy. Long story short, the media just can't fucking stop making him look cool. The entire perp walk where he looked like Superman, that's That's insane. Stop. Have we learned nothing? Media, traditional legacy corporate media, have you learned nothing? Anyway, until we know more, here's a fun fact to tide you over. He's actually reportedly being held at the same Brooklyn jail as Diddy and Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the CEO and American crypto bro of FTX, who was convicted of fraud after his FTX cryptocurrency fraud scheme. Look that up. That was a big news cycle for a while. Number 2, speaking of updates, here are some breaking movements on the journey towards a potential TikTok ban in the United States, because yes, lest we forget, we've got less than 1 month officially before it's supposed to be gone. So on Monday, Trump met with TikTok CEO Hawk Tuah at Mar-a-Lago, while TikTok also appealed the ban directly to the Supreme Court. Monday morning, TikTok filed for an emergency injunction on the upcoming ban to the Supreme Court, releasing a statement that reads, quote, "The Supreme Court has an established record of upholding Americans' rights to free speech. Today, we are asking the court to do what is traditionally done in free speech cases, apply the most rigorous scrutiny to speech bans, and conclude that it violates the First Amendment. The TikTok ban results in a massive and unprecedented censorship of over 100 million Americans, myself included, on January 19th, 2025. Estimates show that small businesses on TikTok would lose more than $1 billion in revenue, and creators would suffer almost $300 million in lost earnings, myself included, in just 1 month unless the ban is halted." The dinner comes as Trump has made statements in support of TikTok, though it's unsure whether he's able to actually do anything because he's not president at the moment. It should be noted that the ban goes into effect January 19th. He doesn't become president until January 20th. So it's like, unless somebody else stepped in, like Joe Biden, there's nothing that Donald Trump can do, even though he says that he's in support of this. Anyway, the newest update on Wednesday, we actually got word that the Supreme Court will agree to hear arguments for TikTok's challenge to the ban on January 10th, but it is done without a stay, which means that they will not stop the ban on the 19th. They will just let it go, but they will hear arguments on the 10th. So unless they do something to intervene in that 9 days, but they're not necessarily, known for speed, unless maybe their like best friend, Donnie Trump, is able to just lean in and say like, hey, you need to fix this, then I'm just not super confident that they're actually going to do anything to intervene in that 9 days. Anyway, anything could happen, I guess. So we'll see. We'll check in 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. And number 1, journalist Kara Swisher is getting together a bunch of rich people to try to buy the Washington Post from Jeff Bezos. So we all remember that Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, bought the Washington Post a few years back, right? And then we remember how they didn't decide to endorse a presidential candidate this year, right? And then a bunch of subscribers all unsubscribed from Washington Post, causing it to lose a fuck ton of money, right? And then he spent the last month just on his knees for Trump, right? So we all remember all of those things. Well, now famous podcaster and pioneering tech journalist Kara Swisher tells Axios that she is trying to get a bunch of rich people to actually get together and buy the paper from Jeff Bezos. But one wrinkle is that he has not expressed any interest in selling the paper. So just a little backstory for those of you who haven't worked in tech. Reporter Oliver Darcy reported in his fall newsletter Status that Swisher was interested in assembling a consortium of wealthy investors to make a bid for the paper. Swisher actually started in the Post mailroom and became an early tech reporter at the paper, and later one of the first at the Wall Street Journal. She believes the Amazon founder will eventually want to sell since the paper has become a managerial nightmare. Like many, she thinks that Bezos should sell since he has other financial and personal interests like space tech that are more important to him and can conflict with his Post ownership. Quote, "The Post can do better. It's so maddening to see what's happening. Why not me? Why not any of us?" Since then, which, last fall, a banker who worked with Swisher in the past has been helping her think through how to move the idea forward. The storied paper would be run by a board of civic-minded people willing to write a big check to be a part of something important. She'd be open to Jeff Bezos remaining as a partial investor, which actually might be something that he'd be invested in too, where he can still make the money. He doesn't look like he just gave it up. He's just like, I want to reshuffle some of my assets. Rich people do that shit all the time. Kara Swisher is confident that the money is out there, but Bezos would have to want to sell. She knows that there would surely be a long line of other suitors, including giant private equity firms and other power-minded billionaires. She added, however, hopefully not Elon, though he seems pretty busy these days being president, not elect. And I will leave you with that. Thank you all again for listening to Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking, where we talked about the top 10 things that happened this week. If you wanted to hear the top, I don't know, this week I talked like 50 different things that happened all week long. I do post on social every day about the top things that happened of the day. And I actually might bring those over as like 5-minute updates to the podcast onto the podcast every single day if that's something you're interested in listening to. Let me know somewhere in a comment, in a review section, in an email, whatever you feel is right, that is something you'd want to hear on this podcast. A 5-minute end of day update every single day. Otherwise, you can just watch it on TikTok at I've Been Traveling or on Instagram at Ben Keenan. It's also on Threads by that same name if you'd rather read and not be on Twitter. I'm on Threads too. If you want to watch this podcast instead of listening to it, I'm on YouTube. So don't forget to like and subscribe over there and subscribe to the podcast, which you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well under Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking. I think I gave you all of the goods, all the information there. If you were a longtime listener, please remember to write a review. Give me the 5 stars. We've actually got quite a few 5-star reviews. We're still at 5 stars, which I love. I'm obsessed with. I would love to hear the feedback, and it helps with the algorithm push this to more people. So with all that being said, thank you again. Until next week, where we talk about more news, because per usual, news is always happening. All right, thanks.